Okay, 25. Determine if the collection is not well defined and therefore not a set. The collection of the 5 best NFL players. Well, if we were to ask 2 different people who the 5 best NFL players were, we'd probably get 2 different answers. So, this is not well defined and therefore not a set. Okay, and then we need to determine if the given set is the empty set. Well, indeed, that symbol means null or the empty set. So that is the empty set. For number 27, determine whether the statement is true or false. When reading this, it says 2 is an element of the set X such that X is an element of the natural numbers and X is odd. So basically it's saying the set is all of the odd natural numbers. 2 is not an odd number, so this one is false. For 28, it wants us to find a union, the null set or the empty set. Well, again, union means everything from both the sets or all the elements from both sets, which is just going to be the elements in set A because the empty set is empty. So, a union empty set is going to be the set 4, 5, 7, 8. Number 29, A intersect the empty set. Now this is what the set A and the empty set share. Well, the only thing they share is the empty set, because remember, the empty set is in every set, or is a subset of every set. So the correct answer is B. For number 30, it wants us to use a Venn diagram to prove that these 2 statements are not equal. The first one is that the complement of A intersect B. So if we draw a little small picture, well, A intersect B is this area in between where those 2 circles overlap. So the complement of that will be everything else. So the complement will be everything in red out here. Now our second scenario, that the complement of A intersected with the complement of B. So again, we'll start by drawing our Venn diagram. And we have the complement of A, so that's everything that's not A. And then the complement of B, that's everything that's not B. And we're looking for where the green and the red overlap, because we're looking for the intersection of those 2. Well, they only overlap all around the outside here. So these definitely are not equal, because the first scenario, the answer was everything except for that little tiny area where the 2 circles intersect. So this statement does make sense, that we can show with Venn diagrams that they are not equal. For number 31, it just wants us to solve and check. Well, most students don't like fractions, so one of the easy things to do is multiply by 10 on both sides of the equation. And multiplying both sides essentially means that we're multiplying every element or every term by 10. So this will be 10 times 35, which will be 350. Then 10 times x over 5, just to show you the side work. 10 times x over 5, we reduce here. 5 goes into 5 once and 5 goes into 10 twice. So we have 2x equals, and then here I think we can see that this 2 reduces and this 10 becomes a 5, equals 5x. We're going to move the 2x over, so plus 2x plus 2x. We get 350 equals 7x. Divide both sides by 7, and we get 50 equals x. Now the reason we multiplied both sides by 10 is we looked at the denominators of 5 and 2 and determined that 10 would have been the least common denominator. So if you multiply all the way across by the least common denominator, then your denominators will cancel. Okay, so for 32, wants us to graph the set of numbers on the number line. X such that x is greater than or equal to -9. Again, whenever you're graphing and an inequality, and we have x is on the left side, x is greater than or equal to. The or equal to means we will have a filled in dot. So we know we're between A and D. And this symbol points the direction that the line goes if your variable is on the left-hand side, which it is. So x is greater than or equal to -9 will be A. And if we want to think about that logically, 0 would be greater than or equal to -9. And we've included 0 in our answer. For 33, we're going to graph x such that x is less than or equal to -5. The less than or equal means we'll have a filled in bubble. So we're between B and D. And less than means we'll be going to the left. And to double check, -10 is less than -5, so our answer is definitely B. For 34, it wants us to factor the trinomial or determine if it's prime. Because there's no number in front of x squared, we need the factors of 11, which are only 1 and 11, that will multiply to a positive 11, which means they have to have the same signs. So 1 times 11 or -1 times -11. And they need to add to this middle term, -11. Well, that's impossible. So the polynomial is prime. For 35, it wants us to solve. The first thing we're going to do is FOIL and distribute, which FOIL is just another name for distributing. So we'll do x times 2x, we get 2x squared. X times 3 gives us plus 3x. -7 times 2x is a -14x. -7 times 3 is a -21 equals. Then we can distribute this -3, so -3 times x is -3x. -3 times -7 is going to be a positive 21. Let's combine like terms on the left side. So we'll have 2x squared minus 11x minus 21 is 0. Oh, excuse me, is that -3x plus 21. And now we're going to move everything over to the left to have a 0 on the right side. So we will add 3x to both sides and subtract 21 from both sides. Whenever we add straight down, we're going to get 2x squared minus 8x minus 42 equals 0. Now I need to factor the left-hand side. I see that there is a 2 in common with all of the terms. So the first thing we want to do is pull out the 2. And we'll be left with x squared minus 4x minus 21 equals 0. And then x squared minus 4x minus 21 is pretty easily factorable. Because there's not a number in front of the x squared, we're going to put the x in front of both. And we need two numbers that multiply to -21, so opposite signs, and then add to -4. Well, a -7 and a positive 3 will work. Now this is all the hard work, but it's not the answer. To get the answer, we have to take and set each term equal to 0, or each factor equal to 0, sorry. So x minus 7 is 0. X plus 3 is 0. The reason we're not taking 2 and setting that equal to 0 is because there's not a variable. We know that 2 equals 0 is not a true statement. So with our x minus 7 equals 0, we'll get x is 7. And with the x plus 3, we get x is -3. So here are our two answers. So the solution set is 7, -3. For number 36, it wants us to use the following function to find f of 4 and f of 0. All that means is that where we have an x, we're going to do f of 4. So that means where there's an x, we're going to put parentheses, and then we'll put the 4 in there. So we have 12 minus 4, which is 8. And for f of 0, same idea. 3, and then where the x was, we'll put parentheses. We plug in 0. So we have 0 minus 4. So f of 0 is negative 4. For 37, use the vertical line test to determine whether the given graph is a graph of a function. If we draw a vertical line anywhere on the graph and we're able to hit the graph more than one time, then it is not a function. Well, there's one example of why it's not a function. Obviously, this one has infinitely many number of lines that can be drawn, and it will hit the graph in more than one spot. For 38, solve the system by substitution. Because they've already solved for y for us, it makes sense to plug this in the top equation. So we'll have x minus 2, and instead of y, leave parentheses, equals negative 2. We're plugging in this negative 2x plus 16. We'll go through and distribute to get rid of our parentheses, so plus 4x minus 32 is negative 2. Combine like terms. 5x minus 32 is negative 2. Move the 32 over, so plus 32 on both sides. 5x is 30. Divide both sides by 5. And we get x is 6. Now it feels like we're done, but really we're not. We've only got half of our answer. We have to take that x equals 6 and plug back into one of the equations to solve for y. I'm going to choose to plug x equals 6 into the second equation. So y equals negative 2 times x plus 16, and where the x was, I'm going to plug in 6. So in working this out, we get negative 2 times 6, which is negative 12, plus 16, which is 4. So we have y is 4, we have x is 6. Our answer is going to be an ordered pair, and it needs to be alphabetical, so x and then the y. Okay, let's look at number 39. So the formulas below are the cost and the revenue functions for a company that manufactures and sells small radios. So the first thing it wants us to do is find the company's profit function. Well, if we know that profit equals revenue minus cost, then it becomes a lot easier. So that means that our profit function equals the revenue, that 40x, minus, and then this is the only tricky part, we have to remember parentheses. So minus the entire cost function of 20,000 plus 38x. Well, to simplify, which we will simplify, we need to distribute that negative sign, so negative 20,000 minus 38x, and then combine like terms. So p of x equals 2x minus 20,000. So here's our answer for A. For B, it wants to know the company's profit from selling 25,000 radios. So we should plug 25,000 into our profit equation, our profit function. So we're doing P of 25,000 equals 2 times 25,000 minus 20,000. Well, 2 times 25,000 is 50,000, and 50,000 minus 20,000 gives us 30,000. So the expected profit when selling 25,000 radios is $30,000. For number 40, express the given fraction as a percent. Well, we just take the 6 and we're dividing it into the 3. So 6 does not go into 3, but it goes into 30 5 times. I actually didn't need that second 0. And then we're going to take that 0.5 and multiply by 100 to get 50%. Now there's another way to set this up also, and I'll show you on 41. Given the express the given fraction as a percent, so x over 100 equals 9 over 40. We can cross multiply and then divide. So 100 times 9 is going to give us 900 equals x times 40 gives us 40x. Divide both sides by 40. And whenever we do, we're going to get 22.5%. All right, for 42, we're going to do a quick tax problem. So for a certain group of people who are not self-employed, the tax rates are as follows: 7.65% on the first $102,000 from wages and tips, and 1.45% on income in excess of $102,000. People who are self-employed pay double the rates shown. So this is really important because it tells us that we need to, if we're self-employed and earn $112,000, figure out our taxes. So we're not thinking about 7.65% in this scenario. We're thinking about double that, which will be 15.3%. And instead of 1.45%, we're thinking about 2.9%. We already know that the first $102,000 will be at that 15.3%. 15.3% taken to a decimal is 0.153, and we're going to multiply that times $102,000. And then we still have $10,000 more dollars. So we did the $112,000. We put $102,000 into that first bracket, which leaves us with $10,000 left to be taxed at that lower percentage. So the 2.9% will be 0.029 times 10,000. And if you plug that into your calculator, you're going to get 15,896. Okay, for number 43, the principal P is borrowed at a simple interest rate R for a period of time T. Find the simple interest owed for the use of the money. Assume there are 360 days in a year, and round answers to the nearest cent. Well, if we look on our midterm formula sheet, we see simple interest is I equals PRT. And it gives us PR and T, so we're just going to plug that in. So I equals 2,000 times the R is 2%, so that's 0.02. The time is 15 months. This is the only tricky part because we're assuming the 15 over 12 because time needs to be annual or in years. So times 15 over 12. If you want to put that in as a decimal of 1.25, that's fine. Whenever we multiply this all out, we end up getting $50. And because it says go to the nearest cent, we'll go out 2 decimal places.